We have just found what is known to be the biblical trees that existed before the Great Flood. And these are the trees that God intended to cut it down so that the giants don't use the tree in order to escape the great Noah's flood. Now take a look at this right here.
This is a giant tree cut down by the angels. God made multiple giant trees like this.
Wow.
But he had to cut them down because he was going to flood the earth. And the angels and the giants were going to try to hide on these trees. So therefore, he had to cut them down with angels. And that's what he did.
Now, before we dive into the actual story of this tree and how this was cut into half, let's take a look at this footage right here.
This is a giant tree that angels cut down in the name of the Lord, so that way the Nephilim could not hide when Noah's, the floods came, and they were going to try to hide up on top of these trees and get away from the flood. And there's multiple other trees just like this all around the world, but they don't want to admit that because Satan rules this world, and it brings you back to Christ. You read the Bible, the book of Enoch, it all talks about this stuff, but they don't want you to know this.
A huge shout out to Ryan Murphy on Instagram for making this video. And apparently there are many trees that was actually cut down by the angels that God sent down to earth before the great flood, the Noah's flood, because it seems like the giants, the Nephilims who lived on earth, were capable enough to climb this massive tree and probably survive the great flood. Now what's funny is that obviously our government, being the government, they named this place as the Devil's Tower for some reason. And the government obviously says that this is just a mountain. What's interesting is that there are plenty of different sites that looks exactly the same way, and it actually looks like a chunk of tree that's been cut down. And if you actually take a look at the size of this thing, it was at least supposed to be about 2 miles all the way up in the sky, and that's how huge these trees were before it was cut down. And this right here is another image so that you guys can take a look at what it actually looked like, and tell me that this doesn't look like an actual tree that is intentionally being sawed down. Now this is basically what the site looks like, and if you compare this with an actual chunk of wood, this is how the roots of an actual tree looks like. And the best example that I can give is that if you take a look at this tree that's been cut down, this looks exactly as what this mountain looks like, and it is massive in size, and it was also mentioned in the scriptures of Enoch. Now unfortunately, the scriptures of Enoch were not included in the Bible because back in those times, the Jews, the Christians, they were not very pleased to hear some of the things that was mentioned in the book of Enoch, and they did not want to include those things in the Bible itself. Some of the things that were said in the book of Enoch is actually crazy because it talks about the angels, it talks about the great Noah's flood and what happened during those floods and before the flood. Now guys, take a look at this image right here. Tell me, how in the world does it even look like it's just a mountain? It's a very clear representation of what an actual tree would have looked like. And this right here is like the stiffness of the roots of the tree that just went all the way up, but then it was cut down, it was sawn down perfectly as though it was done very intentionally by someone. Now in the book of Enoch, it actually says that the angels were sent by God in order to cut down the giant trees before the great Noah's flood happened. And this right here is another image of what the tree actually looks like. If it was fully grown all the way up above, it is said to be about 2 miles that's going to be growing all the way up in the air. So that's a massive tree, to be honest. And if this tree was not cut down, the giants might have probably used the tree in order to climb it up and survive the great flood. And according to the scriptures, that's why God decided to cut it down. Now there is also another mountain, which the government claims that it is just a mountain, it's not a tree. Now of course, everything that's run in this world is run by Satan, so he obviously wouldn't want us to know about the truth of this world and the scriptures that's already been said. So the government claims that this is just an average mountain. Now if you take a close look at this, and you actually even have those tree marks right here, like all of these circular wooden marks that keeps appearing, and obviously over thousands of years, if a wood just stays in a single place, the environment is obviously going to be covering up the wood, and it's going to change its properties, and it's going to look more like a forest. Now for example, this is basically what a cut down tree looks like. If you go close up to a tree stump, this is basically what it looks like. It looks like a bunch of mountains, and it looks like there is a massive jungle that's overgrown on this mountain. But this is just a stump of a tree that's been cut down for hundreds of years. Now imagine a tree that was cut down before the pre-flood era, which is thousands of years from now, and tell me, how can this not be the tree that is mentioned in the scriptures. Now, there are, of course, many different sites that actually looks like a massive tree was cut down. One of these examples that I actually came across on Twitter, if you cut down two trees that are like overgrown between each other, this is basically what it's going to look like. And that's exactly what these mountains look like as well, which, you know, people actually believe that these are just mountains. And we've got another tree that's been cut down all the way near the roots. And look at this mountain right here. It's been cut down. It's been sliced down in a perfect shape. The same goes on for this one as well. And down here, we also have another mountain, which also looks like it's been sliced down. And apparently, if you go up on the close-up surface of these trees, that the structure has a very close resemblance of what an actual chunk of tree would look like. It has some sort of a honeycomb structure, if you take a close look at what it actually looks like, that are formed above the tree where it was like completely flattened, cut down. And this is one of the reasons as to why many people believe that these were not just some random mountains, and these were the trees that actually existed before the Noah's flood. Take a look at a couple of these images that we've got. There are plenty of different trees where now people are starting to question everything that the government is trying to hide from us. Doesn't this look like the roots of the tree that's like all the way underneath, and then there's like a massive tree that was supposed to be grown, but then it was perfectly chopped down for some reason? All of these looks like it was perfectly chopped down. There is no freaking way this is just a random mountain. And they named it as the Devil's Tower. And this is one of the best ones out there. There is no way anybody out there could say that this is just a random mountain. But obviously they don't want us to know the truth, which is why they haven't been revealing the actual reality of what's going on in the world. They haven't really accepted or mentioned this out there in the public that these are eventually the trees. Like, look at these roots, man. It literally looks like an actual tree. Also, take a look at this amazing footage right here of this location, and it looks like some sort of a dragon's mouth or maybe a massive giant snake's mouth. I don't know what it is, but there are teats that are coming out of this mountain. Take a look at this stuff. And they just want us to believe that these are just mountains, man. That's the craziest part. Look at this stuff. The theory of the petrified giants. Look at this stuff. This literally looks like an actual teeth, right? Now, some people believe that this whole thing, they could have just carved it out later, you know? But at the same time, the shape of this whole mountain, it kind of just looks like a snake's head. That's basically what it looks like to me. Now, this is not the only site, apparently. There are many different sites across the world that actually looks like giants that were fallen. And over time, their bodies were apparently turned into mountains. We never know. Could be the history is actually true. Honestly, I would love to hear from you guys. Do you actually think that the so-called mountains are the biblical trees that actually did exist before the Great Flood happened, before the Noah's flood? Let me know in the comments down below, and share this video with as many people as you possibly can. And also, if you guys did enjoy today's podcast, make sure to go ahead, drop a big fat like on this video. It really goes a long way. And if you are interested in watching more content like these, make sure to go ahead, subscribe. It's absolutely free of cost. You don't have to pay a dime in order to subscribe on YouTube. That's the best part. And turn the notifications on and set the notification settings to all, so that way you don't miss out on the content that I upload every single day. Now, with that being said, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the day, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Till then, take it easy, fams, and goodbye.